Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at combat in the new AOS. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. The fires of combat rage higher than ever in new AOS. Warhammer Age of Sigmar is a game of combat. Kinetic crashes between mighty heroes, twisted monsters, and warriors tempered in the flares of 1,000 battles. The melee is the core element of the game, and the rules for fighting in close quarters have been tuned for a new edition to make the conflicts feel more epic than ever before. The changes to commands mean the countercharge and power through are powerful new tools to turn the tides of battle. We've already seen that every miniature now has a combat range in a 3-inch radius, and this simple change has plenty of far-reaching ramifications that result in a smoother and more satisfying combat phase. Combat in the Age of Sigmar. Players familiar with the current edition will find that the new process very similar. Units still charge into combat and fight, but these now also work as abilities with clearly defined declaration and effect steps. Alright, so your charge phase. Charge. Declare. Pick a friendly unit that is not in combat and has not used a run or retreat ability this turn to use this ability. Then make a charge roll of 2d6. Effect. That unit can move a distance up to the value of the charge roll. This unit can move through the combat ranges of any enemy units and must end that move within a half-inch of a visible enemy unit. If it does so, this unit using this ability has charged. And then fight. Any combat phase. Declare. Pick a friendly unit that is in combat or that charged this turn to use this ability. This unit makes a pile-in move. Then, if that unit is in combat, you must pick one or more enemy units as the targets of the unit's attacks. Effects. Resolve combat attacks against the target unit. Okay, so this sounds exactly the same. They just basically have turned them into abilities. The order of operations is generally much clearer in this edition. There are no more start of phase or end of phase subphases. In each phase, the active player uses any of their abilities in which order they want, and then their opponent can do the same, like the Ardboyz Shield Bash and the Blood Sisters Crystal Touch. Alright, so we have Ardboyz, any combat phase, Shield Bash. Declare. Pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit that charged this turn to be the target. Effect. Make a Shield Bash roll of d6 for each model in the unit. For each 6+, inflict 1 mortal damage on the target. And then we have Crystal Touch for the Blood Sisters, any combat phase. Declare. Pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Effect. Roll a dice. If the roll exceeds the target's health characteristic, the target has strike last for the rest of the turn. The combat phase has one significant difference to other phases. After both players have resolved any of their other abilities for this phase, they then take turns to activate units to use fight abilities. Starting with the active player. Strike first and strike last effects are still very much in the mix, occurring on either side of the standard fight timings. Coupled with all-out attack and all-out defense, the combat phase remains an intense and strategic affair. Units cannot make shooting attacks if they are in combat, unless their weapons have the shoot in combat ability, so tagging a missile unit is a great opportunity for counterplay. Alright, so combat abilities sequence. Active players' combat phase abilities, not fight. Opponents' combat phase abilities, not fight. Players alternate using fight abilities, starting with the active player. A unit can perform a pile-in move as part of the fight ability, allowing models to move up to 3 inches. Every model in that unit must end the move no further from the target unit than it was before it piled in, and must still be in combat with every unit it started the move engagement in combat with. Pile-in move. Some abilities, such as fight abilities, allow a unit to make a short move called the pile-in move, to get into a better position for combat to do so. If your unit is in combat, pick an enemy unit your unit is in combat with to be the target of the pile-in move. Each model in your unit can move up to 3 inches. That move can pass through combat ranges of any enemy units, but each model must end that move no further from the target unit. At the end of the move, your unit must still be in combat with all units that it was in combat with at the start of the move. If your unit is not in combat, each model in your unit can move 3 inches in any direction. That move can pass through and end within combat ranges of any enemy units. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products, including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now, back to the video. Fight, fight, fight. The process of working out combat will be familiar to players, with a few key changes. Unmodified rolls of a 6 are now critical hits, a term that can trigger a range of new effects on attacks, while mortal wounds have been renamed mortal damage. Overall, rend has been reduced throughout the game, and while you can still positively modify your save profile with all-out defense, this remains capped at +1. Most factions lack other tools to further increase a unit's save profile, so save stacking, The process of negative rend by adding extra saves is largely a thing of the past. There's a slight change to the way damage is allocated. Instead of allocating damage points to a model in the unit, damage points are now allocated to the unit as a whole. When the total of damage points allocated to a unit equals the health characteristic of that unit, the commanding player removes the model from the unit, but they must stay in coherency. This greatly speeds up how damage is totaled up and stops you from losing track of which model was injured, or absent-mindedly allocating that first damage point to your unit champion and coming to curse your past self. Okay, so for the most part, it sounds like a simplified version of how things basically already were. It sounds very similar to what we saw in 40k. They're reducing rend across the board. They're also reducing like stacking of modifiers. Unit roles. With combat rage gone, you might have the question about how a warrior with a hammer is set apart from one with a spear. This has been handled by further differentiating the role of each unit on the battlefield. Weapon and war scroll abilities now provide units with specific roles. Take the bristling spear wall of Stormcast Eternal's Vindictors as an example. They have anti-charge rend +1. As a weapon ability, granting additional rend when they are charged, while they have the opportunity to strike first if they successfully hold the shield wall. Okay, so very cool. This is something that people have been discussing, how things like spears versus hammers are going to act. So here we have the Vindictor War Scroll, and we have the Storm Spear is their weapon, and it has the anti-charge ability, +1 rend. So any combat phase, hold the shield wall. Effect: if this unit did not charge this turn, and it is in combat with an enemy unit that charged this turn, roll a dice. On a 4+, the unit has strike first for the rest of the turn. So basically, if you get charged with your Stormcast Eternals with spears, you roll a dice. On a 4+, you get the strike first ability. And then you also have the anti-charge ability on your actual spear, which is +1 rend. So if you roll that 4+ and you succeed, you're going to be at rend 2 instead of rend 1, and you're going to have the strike first ability. So essentially that is your counter charge ability. Pretty good. Greater combat range and no battle shock make seething hordes of clan rats and crypt ghouls more dangerous, but monstrous infantry like Croxador love to cut a bloody sway through these teeming mobs. The anti-infantry +1 rend devastates armor, while the brutal blows passive ability can pulverize 4 bodies in a single swing, and they get 4 attacks. Alright, so here's our Croxador datasheet, and we see it's anti-infantry +1 rend, and their passive ability is brutal blows. Effect: add 1 to the damage characteristic of the unit's melee weapons for the attack that targets an enemy unit which has 10 or more models. So the Moonstorm Hammer is normally damage 3, that's going to give it damage 4 against units with 10 or more models. Alright, so then we have Coherency Range. All the moving, charging, piling in, and general jostling around is also tied to unit coherency, which represents how units move and fight together. The coherency range of unit is now 1/2 inches, and models must remain within range of at least one other model in their unit. Models in a unit of 7 or more fighters must remain within coherency range of at least 2 of their comrades. While a certain unit, especially those comprised of large models like Stormdrake Guard, have a larger coherency range, noted on their war scrolls. Coherency is measured horizontally, which means the height differences don't matter. Retreating. Battleshock has gone, because the fight in the Age of Sigmar is to fight the fate of the mortal realms. Armies engage in battle with utter conviction and battle to the bitter end, but retreat is now an ability used in the movement phase, a tactical decision that comes at the cost of a D3 mortal damage. Though some wily units may be able to use special abilities to slip out of combat without reprisal, including certain skaven. So your movement phase, retreat, declare, pick a friendly unit that is in combat to use this ability. Effect: inflict a D3 mortal damage on that unit. The unit can move a distance up to the move characteristic. This unit can move through the combat ranges of enemy units, but it cannot end the move within combat range. On Friday, we'll be unrolling arcane scrolls, brushing off our dogma, and pondering both orbs, thaumaturgical and theological, as we unpack how magic, prayers, and manifestation work in the new edition. Okay, so overall, nothing too crazy here. It does sound very similar to how things are working in 40k, relative to how they were pre-10th edition. So basically, we still have a nice and cool, unique rule set for Age of Sigmar, but we've seen a lot of the same changes that they rolled into 40k being rolled into Sigmar. I like the idea of like stopping the stacking of crazy save modifiers. I like the idea of reducing the overall rend in the game. It sounds like they have kept the game still strategic in the fight phase, but eliminated some of like the redundancy or extra complicated rules. And while some of the actual rules that we're seeing here are a little bit more wordy, I think overall it's going to eliminate some of the more like complex or confusing situations. We still have coherency. It's just handled a little bit differently. They've addressed how like the actual range on the weapons is being eliminated, but still has functional. And overall, I think these look like good changes. Now, obviously, until we actually get to play the game, until we have the full picture, we won't know if some of these changes are really good or if some of them are actually bad. But overall, right now, I like the direction of the actual rules that we're seeing. It sounds like they've at least like incorporated all of the different elements from the previous games. So suddenly a spear loses all of its benefits compared to something like a hammer. We just see that those are handled in different ways. So let me know what you guys think down below. Overall, I think these are nice rule changes, but I always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. And of course, special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on Games Workshop products. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and I can definitely feel the excitement building. And I'm out of here.